Hello and welcome to session 1 of this program, Mindful Me. So today's topic is being mindful. Today I have my pet dog, Cody, who will be teaching us a few things about being mindful. He teaches me every day and he reminds me of ways in which I can be mindful and better the quality of my life. So the question is, what does being mindful mean? Being mindful means quite the opposite of having a full mind. As you can see by this picture, on your left, you can see the man is allowing himself to be driven by his thoughts, where his mind is thinking of all sorts of things, none of which are actually happening in the moment. On the right side, we have the perfect example of what being mindful is: a dog, who is simply observing his surroundings and being mindful of the moment. You may be wondering, how can we achieve this with the human mind? It's a lot easier for animals who don't think as much as we do. Well, the answer is simple. We do this by learning ways in which to calm our thoughts and make a conscious choice to focus our attention on simply and purely what is happening in the moment. A mindful technique commonly used to make this easier, and also a very popular way in which animals keep mindful, is by using our senses to experience the moment. Observing what we see, noticing what we hear, what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, and what we sense in that moment as we are experiencing it. Dogs and animals are the perfect example of this. There is so much we can learn by observing them. So by experiencing the moment by using our senses, we're able to absorb the moment more vividly and even remember it with better clarity. So what happens when we are not being mindful? A lot of the time we tend to allow our minds to drift away, and instead of being aware of what is actually happening in the moment, we tend to get caught in our thoughts and miss out on what is really happening in our lives. Our thoughts have a lot of control over our emotions. So when our mind drifts, they tend to take us to thoughts and things that are worrying us. Sometimes thoughts about the past, thoughts of the future, and they end up making us feel anxious, stressed, or even fearful, when in that moment of reality, none of those things are actually happening, and everything may be calm, happy, and normal. Did you know? Studies show that on average, our minds drift over 47% of the times. This means that for almost half our lives, we are allowing ourselves to experience the moods our thoughts are creating instead of appreciating the moment we are actually living. So we are missing out on giving our best and living the reality of our lives. So let's start exploring this with ourselves. Think of our mind as a playful puppy that wants to be wandering around most of the time. It is our duty as the puppy's owner to train it, just like it is our duty to train our minds. So every time you notice the puppy wanders off, you need to gently bring it back to its mat. This training works exactly the same with our minds. Every time we notice it drift, we need to gently bring our attention back to the moment. Exercise 1. Focus our mind. For 30 seconds, we are going to close our eyes and focus all our attention on our breathing. We use our breathing as a way of being present because it is something that is happening in the moment. I want you to notice every time your attention drifts into thought, and as you become aware of this, gently bring your attention back to your breathing, just like you would bring a wandering puppy back to its mat. Are you ready? Close your eyes. In 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'd like you to ask yourself, how many times did you notice your mind drift and had to bring your attention back to your breathing? Was it from 1 to 5 times, 5 to 10 times, maybe more? Just to have a rough idea. Because this time we're going to repeat this exercise again, but this time we're going to use a more mindful technique that should make keeping our attention on our breath a lot easier. If we think of our minds being like a puppy again, we cannot expect the puppy to stay on its mat if it has no motivation or reason to focus on the mat. And it works the same for our minds. For a puppy, we might need to place toys on his mat, maybe a soft blanket, maybe some dog treats, something they can taste, something they can smell, something they can feel comfortable with. And for our minds, we need to use the most powerful technique proved to work wonders, which is our senses. So once again, we're going to focus our attention on our breathing, but this time we're going to experience it more mindfully by using our senses. Exercise 2. Focusing our minds using our senses. Throughout the exercise, I will be guiding you through each sense. Ready? So close your eyes in 3, 2, 1. Bring your attention to your breath. We're going to follow the breath as it enters our nose, down our chest, and into our body as we inhale. And follow it out slowly as we exhale. Notice how your body moves as we inhale. Pause slightly and then exhale. Now listen out for any sound you may be making as you inhale and exhale. Next, bring your attention to any particular scent you smell as you inhale, or any sensations you may be feeling as your breath enters your nose into your body and leaves your body out of your nose. You may feel the breath is warm or cold, tingly, maybe soothing. Any sensation that you become aware of in the moment. Okay, great. This exercise lasted a lot more than 30 seconds, probably double the time than the first exercise did, which means we would have drifted more times than we did the first time round. But something tells me this is not the case. So how many times did you actually notice yourself drift this time? More or less from 1 to 5, 5 to 10 times, maybe more? Unless you experienced any major disruption throughout the exercise, I am guessing it was less than the first time we did it. And if this was the case, the answer is simple. By experiencing the present moment through our senses, focusing on them one by one, it is easier for the mind to stay in the present moment and not drift. So when we are working on being mindful, use your senses, observe your surroundings, notice what you see, pay attention to what you hear, what you smell, what you taste, and what you feel by touch. You may not be able to use all your senses in certain tasks or activities, but any you can use will certainly help keep you grounded, calm you down, and help you remain present in the moment. Plus, it will help you create a more vivid experience of your reality. This exercise we have just done is called mindful breathing, simply because we are breathing mindfully. Mindful breathing is an extremely powerful exercise we must continue to do a few times throughout a day. This will help us pause for a few seconds, settle our thoughts, and enable us to continue our day with a little bit more focus and clarity. It is also an extremely useful exercise to use when you're feeling overwhelmed with emotions, maybe if you're stressed or anxious about something. So from now on, remind yourself to do this throughout your day. And to help reinforce this useful habit, we are going to have a few mindful breathing breaks throughout our video sessions too. Something we must remember though is that using our senses works mainly for tasks that do not require much thought. So it works perfectly when focusing on our breathing as we do it automatically. But in tasks that require our full thinking attention, like working, solving problems, reading or writing, using our senses would actually become a distraction. So in these cases, being mindful would mean noticing every time our minds drift and gently bringing it back to the task we are doing and apply our full attention to it. When we practice mindfulness, we learn to take control of our minds and focus it on what we want and what is good for us. And as a result, we become calmer, more relaxed, and happier. Does this mean that by practicing mindfulness, our minds won't drift anymore? Certainly not. Our minds will always drift as long as we're alive, and that is completely natural. But it does mean that our minds will drift less, and we will be able to gain a healthier control of our minds rather than our minds controlling us. On days when we are facing a problem or worried about something, we might notice our minds drift a lot more often. And this only means that we need to work a little bit harder on becoming aware of when it drifts and gently bring our attention back to the moment more times than usual. But if you make this a daily habit, it will start becoming a natural way of being. There are many activities we can use to practice being mindful apart from focusing on our breath. A simple one is focusing our attention on something we may be holding. It can be absolutely anything as long as it's safe for you to hold. So for the following exercise, choose something you wish to hold. You may prefer to choose a sensory object like a small beanbag or a scented squishy or even just a rubber. I will be guiding you through the sensations you can focus on, and it's up to you to notice every time your mind drifts so you can gently bring your attention back to what we're focusing on in the moment. Let's begin to explore this object mindfully through our senses. What does it look like? What colors do you see? Are they bright or pastel colors? Are they gradient or do they have a contrast? Observe its shape. Does it have edges? Does it have corners? Is it rounded, sharp? What does it feel like against your hand when you're holding this item? Smooth, rough, soft, bumpy? Can you squash it? Can you twist it, stretch it, shake it? Can you bounce it? Does it change its shape and move? Does it make a sound as you're touching it? Does it make a sound as you tap it against something? Does it have a particular smell? Notice that none of the guidance throughout a mindful experience encourages you to judge the experience, whether you like it, whether you don't, whether you find it pleasant, whether you don't. We are purely experiencing and accepting the moment as it is. This is a major part of being mindful, not expecting anything from the experience, not judging it, and simply allowing it to be just as it is. If you're into sports, you may want to try exploring this activity using any of your sports equipment. For example, a basketball, a football, a volleyball, a tennis racket, hockey stick, or any other sports equipment you may use or have at hand. Can you think of any other activities you can use to practice being mindful with? Here are 2 more activities you can explore being mindful with. Place the slime on a suitable surface. What does it look like? Observe its colors. Is it bright, clear, pastel? Is it glittery and shiny? Observe its shape. Does it change? Does it move by its own? Does it make a sound as you're handling it? Is the sound soft, loud, high-pitched, low-pitched? How does it feel against your skin? Can you poke it with your fingers? How does it feel against the palm of your hands? Is it smooth, cold, warm, sticky? Can you smell anything in particular? The last activity we're going to explore being mindful with in this session is colouring in. I have provided a few options for you to print out and work on, but feel free to choose any picture of your own. Make a choice of which media you wish to explore throughout this art activity, whether it's colouring pencils, felt pens, crayons. Each media will give you a different experience. You may also wish to play some soft music in the background to set a particular mood or vibe for this activity. Throughout this activity, really experience the moment and allow your senses to truly absorb each moment throughout this activity. You do not need to complete this colouring task in one go. You may wish to come back to this activity on another occasion, maybe on an occasion where you feel like you need to become mindful, practice it, or calm yourself. Allow this experience to flow just as it is, without expecting anything from it or judging it in any way. And remember, every time you notice your mind drift, gently bring your attention back to the task. For this activity, you will be guiding yourself through the senses. So it will be normal to notice your mind drift every now and then. Just be sure to notice it every time it does and gently bring your attention back to the reality around you. So pause this video whilst you set up and carry out this mindful activity, or if you prefer to end this session now, then continue to play. There are many other ways in which you can experience being mindful with. So let's start implementing this exercise with things we already do, hobbies we already have, or anything new we may wish to explore. If it's an instrument you want to try out mindfully, or if you're a dancer and you want to become more mindful of your movements and the sounds you make whilst you're dancing, whatever activity you choose to explore, take a moment and notice how you feel after doing the exercise. Until the next session, I hope you have a wonderful, mindful week.